Gabby, did you unmute me?
Yeah, I just unmuted you. You should be good.
Thank you, Gabby. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I am going to strongly urge that everybody on this panel not talk over one another. We probably saw enough of that last night. That we're not going to talk over one another, and I have the power to mute your microphone if you force me to. So if we can all behave, that would be great. No, thank you for joining. Let's start. Brian Wilson, why don't you kind of give an introduction? Most of the folks on the call have heard from Matt Douglas and John Lloyd as our resident experts in the past, but you're a new face to folks. Brian, why don't you explain who you are, what you do for Cisco, and what your favorite color is?
It sounds good. Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. Brian Wilson here. I came into Cisco via the Broadsoft acquisition. I'm a cloud and hosted calling product specialist here at Cisco, and so I support partners like CBTS and getting the offers and navigating all the architecture offerings that we have here at Cisco. And for a bonus there, Rob, my favorite color is green.
Good. Well, for those in the channel, they've watched Broadsoft power a lot of the providers that they were used to in the channel, and then Cisco acquires Broadsoft, and as you just explained, you've ridden that roller coaster from the front row of the front car. Tell us what you've seen since going from Broadsoft to Cisco, and obviously we're going to be talking about Teams today and how that evolution looks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a really good journey, a very interesting journey. I'd say that it has a couple of weaving back and forth. I think, you know, when Cisco acquired Broadsoft, they really knew what they were getting with the cloud assets, the assets that we affectionately at Broadsoft called Broad Cloud, and they integrated that first very quickly into the Webex portfolio vis-a-vis Webex calling. But that really, you know, what we noticed is what really big Cisco noticed very quickly was that wasn't a great fit for the many managed service providers like CBTS that have a very strong BroadWorks offering in the market. And so sort of year one of acquisition was a lot of working towards Broad Cloud. And now, really over the last 6 or 8 months, we've done a lot of development on integrating BroadWorks in, and I think we're going to be talking about this a little later in the panel about Webex for BroadWorks, which is what I'm really excited about for that integration of those calling assets in with the Webex portfolio. But yeah, it's been a really great journey to come in and join Cisco, and man, we have some really great engineers working on some really great stuff here, so it's exciting. Great.
You know, we hear a lot, Matt, and I know you've been talking a lot about this in our partner community. We hear a lot about Teams, right? Oh, yeah. And then you kind of have to say, are you talking about Cisco WebEx Teams, or are you talking about Microsoft Teams? Kind of, what do you see as some of the differentiators between, you know, why someone might look at Cisco WebEx Teams or Microsoft Teams? Obviously, you know, we as a provider have access to both, but, you know, why do you see some of the distinctions for Cisco WebEx Teams?
Sure, and I give a little bit of that. I think Brian can give even more color, kind of coming from the Cisco side. And we addressed this a little bit in some of the other sessions that we had, really, is that, you know, pre-COVID, you really almost weren't thinking that much about these collaboration tools. And post-COVID now, you know, 80–90% of all my meetings are in somebody's collaboration tool, right? And so this world now of that team space, of instant messaging presence, of doing web collaboration, audio conferencing from a desktop or a smartphone client, I think has really changed how people are starting to look at the UCaaS platforms, what we're kind of calling UCaaS 2.0. Certainly Microsoft Teams has made a big push, in particular in the last year. You know, go back 3 years ago, we would have never even kind of assumed this was going to happen. And so all of us, you know, partners and service providers like ourselves are starting to address how do we help people who've decided they have to stay in Microsoft Teams. But WebEx Teams really, and what Cisco's doing, and I think Brian can give a lot more color on this, is really starting to develop or release, I think, a kind of a game changer approach at this tool, Webex Teams for BroadWorks, which is really Webex Teams and Webex meetings and a soft phone, all the clients, all the things you'd expect, but now sitting there in this, this comprehensive environment that goes along with our BroadWorks call control. So I think we're meeting with customers and trying to help them understand really is maybe they don't even really necessarily need Microsoft Teams. Because really when we sell this new kind of UCAS 2.0 product, just like Microsoft Teams kind of includes instant messaging and presence in the soft phone client, we're now doing this in this new platform. And so we've got a message now to a customer of, you've really got a choice now. You can take a look at, Cisco UCAS offerings, this UCAS 2.0 with this new, Webex Teams for BroadWorks client. And really, if you wanted to, you could set aside your Microsoft Teams, or you could work together in conjunction. So it is absolutely a changing landscape. We're having discussions today with customers we just never had a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Matt, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Remote work has really increased adoption of workflow-based or workspace-based messaging tools. Obviously, the top three being Slack, Microsoft, and Webex from that perspective. And I think they all offer sort of that wonderful move out of email and into targeted project-based conversations with a team. And it's revolutionized the way that teams communicate, quite frankly. And so we've seen mass adoption of that across. And I think one thing Microsoft has done well at doing is especially in their enterprise agreements, putting Microsoft Teams in there as this giant value add that IT administrators think they're perceiving a lot of value out of just having a messaging tool called Microsoft Teams, when in reality the messaging tool that you're using it's a free sort of usage tool in either case, whether you're going Cisco, whether you're going Microsoft, whether you decide to standardize on Slack. The core based messaging function in itself doesn't have all that much value. It's really how the end users touch the tools, what they integrate with it to, how many things are they doing in there from actually getting their work done, and how does it integrate from a calling, meetings, tasks, your productivity suite, your ERP system integration, and that can really change the way that employees work within a business. So I think when I look at, okay, what's the future here? Where's this going with this Microsoft and Cisco showdown in a team collaboration space? I think there's definitely space for both to thrive and to have a place. One thing that we're really going to have to sharpen our pencil on, both partners and those in the channel, is really getting to the end customer and understanding the collaboration tool that you're using now and how you would desire to integrate into it. Do you require a native calling experience within that tool, whether it's Microsoft? And then the other thing I would say is most people don't realize how well Webex Teams integrates into the Office 365 experience. So if you have a business that's standardized on, cloud versions of Word and Excel, they're sharing documents within SharePoint, automatic permissions navigating, editing documents in real time in spaces you can do natively within Webex Teams. And once those are actually shown to the end customer and they say, wow, I can get the world's best calling platform, Cisco, and have this great messaging tool, it's really a wonderful alternative to Microsoft Teams.
One thing I didn't hear you talk about, which most people think of when they think of Webex, is traditional Webex meetings like the one we're on now, conferencing. That's all also in play, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, on the Microsoft side, certainly you have to navigate the licensing structure with, am I in an EA? Am I going to buy the E3 package or the E5 package? Am I going to bolt on premium meetings? Webex for BroadWorks, the offer obviously that we're designing and we're going to market with CBTS as a partner, is going to have a couple of very simple SKUs, and the premium SKU is just going to include Webex Meetings 1000. So anytime that you have an opportunity to sell messaging and calling, there's going to be that option there to just add on full-blown enterprise Webex meetings right into the offer, which has a slew of benefits, as you outlined, Rob, being able to use these video devices like I'm talking on right now, a DX80, and then having the full meetings functionality with 1,000 participants.
Thanks. Matt, I think in the channel we hear a lot of terms getting, or at least our partners hear a lot of terms from customers and providers that get tossed around. Could you kind of help sort out, maybe with you and Bryan, and we've even mentioned some of them, Microsoft Teams, Cisco Webex Teams, Microsoft Direct Route, UCAS, with handsets. I mean, all these pieces are hanging together. How have you seen and been talking to customers about bringing those into a common solution that a customer can nod their head and say, I've seen all these technologies, but I see how a provider like CBTS can guide me in a direction to meet my objectives, my business objectives?
Actually, I think that's probably the biggest opportunity for us and for partners with customers today, because customers are still confused when they think about, they get Microsoft Teams, it's on their desk, they think it's free, and they think they're going to be able to pretty inexpensively or free turn that into a telephone, right? To put a DID and connect that to the telephone world. And the truth is, it isn't, right? You got to pay Microsoft some $8 plus $4 for $8 for business voice, $4 for a audio conferencing license. Then you got to get a dial plan, whether you get that dial plan from Microsoft or whether you get it from Direct Route from a provider like us. So one, there's a complexity there that I think we can help customers understand, that if they make that decision or think they're making that decision to go to Microsoft Teams and voice enable it, what are the components, right? What do you got to get? And then there's helping customers understand that really the implementation of the PBX-like features, what we kind of consider, table stakes, like in the PBX or UCAS world, when we provide a hosted telephony solution in the cloud, it's table stakes for us to be able to connect to paging systems, or a door strike, to be able to do simple call centers or multi-level auto attendance or shared line appearances between people, things that have been happening in the PBX world for decades, right? Well, that's not available yet today at Microsoft Teams Business Voice and their PBX offering. So I think that one of the great opportunities for partners with vendors like ourselves, with companies like CBTS, is that now we can come in and really do a consultative approach and understand, again, what are their business problems, and we just get to be more glue to help understand and teach them really that, okay, you think maybe you're going to move all your voice components there, well, that's not going to happen. You're going to have a mix and match of different pieces, right? I know you and I have been involved in this big opportunity of a healthcare facility that has some 20,000 users, right, and 30,000 devices, and their goal is to literally get rid of every legacy PBX. And they initially thought, we'll just move all that call control into Teams. Well, that can't happen. You can't run healthcare facilities with the PBX features that are in Teams. And so that solution is going to be a combination of PBX business or Microsoft Teams Business Voice, that PBX function, along with our Direct Route. Then along with some UCAS services, our hosted Unified Communications as a Service. So I think, like we talk about, that SD-WAN is a great end to finding and talking about people's applications and the glue to really be a partner on the kind of next generation network forever, or forever being, let's say the next decade with a customer. I think now this is kind of this UCAS 2.0, this collaboration, how it's expanding, Microsoft Teams, Cisco, all these things. It gives a partner now the best opportunity they've had to go in and start to teach customers and be that glue on this kind of UCAS 2.0 space for them for the next decade as well. So for me, it's the most exciting time we've had in helping people, build this next future, if you will. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Matt. And just to kind of to highlight one of the things that you mentioned around door buzzers and lighting up areas of the business that are not the traditional knowledge worker. From Webex for Broadworks, or the Cisco approach, right? We're building on 20 years of calling expertise with the world's most widely used cloud PBX, Broadworks, right? And things like hunt groups, auto attendance, shared call appearances, call queuing, managed SIP devices, SIP interfaces with all sorts of third-party applications. These are things that our PBX has done for really, we've built on it for the last 20 years. And that enables you to build the entire enterprise in the same cloud calling solution, where, as you pointed out on the Microsoft side, it's really targeted just at the knowledge workers. And so for a business that says, okay, I want native dialing functionality They really have to figure out how that's going to integrate in with the rest of the business, and that's where Webex for Broadworks is going to be a good fit.
Yeah, let me bring up a point you made there, Bryan. I think, and along with another one you made earlier, COVID and this work from home, I think finally got a lot of us in technology kept saying, for these knowledge workers, why do people still have pieces of plastic, right? And now
Yeah.
with COVID and work from home, all of a sudden the adoption train left the station and everybody's comfortable getting used to a new way of working and comfortable with something, an app on their phone, something on their desktop, calling with conferencing, all these things. How do you see with those knowledge workers, how does Cisco think of that world now with less plastic and the client interface along with the hardware?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I've been in this industry for 10, 15 years. Been obviously doing telephony and PBXs and audio conferencing for a long time. I remember back in the late 2000s when all the vendors said, "Hey, video is going to take off. You got to invest in all this video infrastructure. Everybody's going to be on video all the time." And then obviously you had all the Tannenberg appliances and the room systems from Cisco, and Polycom made huge investments. But the adoption outside of large corporate settings, really wasn't there. And if I look just at my own career, of all the calls I've been on, I'd say I've been on hundreds, if not thousands, of web meetings like this. And if you look maybe back 2-3 years, the rate of video participation, you could probably say 30-40% of participants would be on video. The rest would be audio only.
If that, yeah.
But if that. But with the change of COVID, not just internal meetings within my own business, but meeting with customers, meeting with partners, meeting with lots of external participants. I've personally seen video participation north of 80% on every call that I'm on, which I think is going to have very large, wide changes in the market that we're going to see. And we're going to see pieces of plastic that were dedicated for calling be changed out for pieces of plastic that might be dedicated for video, such as the device I'm talking with you on. And so I never could have imagined a world that I would be comfortable working from home full time and not have a dedicated phone. And I can tell you I don't. I have a headset and I have a dedicated video device. And this is what I communicate on all day.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say that's a differentiator that we're seeing in the market for Cisco is really complementing the video experience with the soft phone experience, because you're absolutely right. The video experience, although I've got a DX80 in HD and it picks up all the wrinkles that I'm trying to hide from everybody on my video calls, it's absolutely how we conduct business now. And so those video units it's kind of a new piece of plastic that is really becoming the norm when folks, particularly in sales organizations, can't talk to their customers, right? And they don't want to have the experience be something that's on their laptop that they're trying to position and look right. You want to I really think, and we've started to see it, that a professional video experience is how salespeople are going to want to interface with their customers and their partners, and they may need some bigger plastic to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So looking at a couple questions that are starting to roll in, I think there's a question of, is there a good customer size for the Cisco Webex Teams offering?
Yeah,
Bryan,
good,
is there
good
or
question.
a vertical?
Yeah, so and from a sizing perspective, I mean, there's really not a sweet spot, I would say. Obviously, like I said, with the meetings bolt-on package that goes with it, you can have up to 1,000 meetings participants. And when I look at between the Cisco solution and perhaps the Microsoft solution, I think the big misconception in the market is that if I'm on an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, then there's really not a place for Webex for Broadworks or vice versa, which really is not true at all. I think there's a wonderful place in the market for a customer to be on maybe even an enterprise agreement with Microsoft using E3 licenses for the majority of their base of their employees, and then adding on a Webex for Broadworks seat to empower callings, collaboration, and meetings. And the end customer can take part of all three of those options or just one or two. And there's a really good fit for that as well. So when I look at the offering that we're launching together, Webex for BroadWorks, I see it as being a great fit from the SMB all the way up to the high end of the mid-market.
I would agree with that, and I think that direct route in general, those customers that are going to deploy, they're going to deploy some Microsoft Teams Business Voice and direct route are typically in the higher enterprise side. Typically those customers in thousands of employees and above. We're not seeing, although we've seen customers in the 100 to 500 employee range ask those questions. Those folks kind of an SMB, 10 to 500 users are going to be open to just using the Office suite, but using some other collaboration tool, whether that's Webex Teams for BroadWorks, whether it's one of our other competitors in the UCaaS space. And so that's what excites me about this new release really of Webex Teams for BroadWorks, is that now I believe in that SMB space, we are going to become much more relevant, and I think an opportunity to be dominant in certain situations over the RingCentrals and the 8x8s of the world. Because Webex does have a history of security, scalability. From a pure collaboration standpoint, it was one of the world leading platforms. Now to be able to combine that with our BroadWorks implementation and take that down into the 10 to 100 seat range, who I don't believe are going to be as interested in looking at Teams calling, then I think we got a great opportunity. I think this is going to be a little bit of a game changer of how people perceive Cisco's UCaaS offering here going forward. So,
yep. We're getting some questions in around work in government, state and federal. Bryan, can you talk through maybe how the licensing, looks in state and federal, both in the U.S. and Canada?
Yeah, good question. So, typical Cisco side, right? There is some pretty significant consideration from a licensing and transactioning on federal systems, particularly around security classification for FedRAMP and other things. So I think we need to be sensitive to certainly federal government requirements in both the U.S. and Canada, right? Canada has some pretty specific data sovereignty requirements, especially for some of their government entities. And so we do have opportunities to connect into Canadian-only data centers to do that, to meet that requirement. But for the U.S., there are some specific considerations for FedRAMP, which have higher classifications, and Webex for BroadWorks is not going to be a fit there. From a pricing and a modeling perspective for state governments or for higher education, we really are trying to hit a sweet spot with Webex for BroadWorks that we like to call transactional velocity. We want to empower our partners like CBTS to have transactional velocity, to be able to go in, meet with any customer, whether it's a SLED customer or just a regular commercial customer, and kind of have the same SKUs, if you will, for each one. So in our mind, it will fit very well for a state government or higher ed. We do need to be consideration of security issues for federal government.
Just to add that idea of data, add to the data sovereignty in Canada, for any partners here or on the session, we have data sovereignty in Canada. We've got POPs, we've got full data centers in Canada with both our HCS call manager platform and BroadWorks platform. So for those of you who have Canadian customers who have data sovereignty needs, we can meet those. So I just want to make sure that was clear. Yep.
And John, I want to make sure you don't complain about being on the call and not being asked any questions. We talk about security. If you don't mind, weave in the, because I know we get this question a lot, is when we talk about work from home users and now connecting maybe with, UCaaS, how does SD-WAN play into that world that I know you run, and the conversations that you're brought in as it complements the UCaaS deployment, direct route, and work from home?
Yeah, so I went 25 minutes without talking, so I just wanted that for the record.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Mute helped a lot, but so it's obviously a very complex question. I want to keep it focused to the voice side. As I look across my office setup, you guys hit on, and Bryan and Matt and yourself as well, talked about how are we connecting, what is the device. So I have a Cisco 8851 desk phone sitting here, and then I have my DX80, and then I have a Windows HP Surface, and then I have my Mac, and then I have my iPhone. Any of these devices are how I can collaborate throughout the day, depending on what I'm doing. Maybe I'm on a Zoom call with somebody else. Maybe I'm on CBTS's Webex and our Broadsoft story, right? The Webex calling. So now all of a sudden for me, it's not about an application. I know a lot of work from home, a lot of SD-WAN OEMs started to tout, download this application on your PC. That's not enough. What we're trying to do with SD-WAN is to extend the network to the home. So I have an SD-WAN device that sits here in my network. It can broadcast a wireless SSID. That SSID can have radius authentication back to my corporation. So now I'm tied in. I can create a work-specific segment to it. And now I'm not worried about how do I connect my DX80 in so that I can optimize WebEx traffic over the same internet connection that my neighbor's kids are doing virtual learning and my kids are watching Disney Plus and video games and Fortnite and all of that stuff that's going on. For this use case, and I talk about this all the time when people say we're reducing our office footprint, we closed 70 offices. No, you didn't. You opened 1,200 new ones when you sent those 70 offices full of people home. And that's the challenge. It's not just how do we connect, but how do we start to prioritize these mission critical functions? You mentioned, Rob, sales are going to be done over video. And for the folks on the sales calls, you know that first impression is a huge deal. Everybody on our call is sitting here on the DX80 and crystal clear audio versus somebody that's maybe on a camera on their PC. And so how do we deliver that mission critical function? How do we move a call center of 200 agents to go and work from home? And so for us, there's a lot that comes into play, but it's understanding we want to create the same way that SD-WAN is about creating an always-on secure network, regardless of where the application lives or where the employee sits. We want to do that same thing. We want to prioritize these real-time applications like voice or video. And then the other thing we take into account when we deploy our work from home solutions is most people have a internet connection that comes in, and that internet connection is shared with their closest 280 neighbors, and it sits at the end of a major, a fiber distribution hub sits at the end of the street, and that's going to get hit by a car and they could be down for days. And so we utilize LTE to provide a secondary circuit so we can deploy these boxes overnight, stand everybody up securely, prioritize voice applications, but also give that lifeline that when there is a circuit that goes down, LTE can kick in and keep those mission critical functions up and working.
Talk a little bit too, John, about the conversations you and your team have been having about, because I've heard people ask, okay, if we're going to put a company-owned SD-WAN box in my home, how are you going to do that yet allow my kids or my wife to surf and go to Amazon, but the company's not keeping track of what my wife does or the kids do? Talk a little bit about what some of the conversations you've had about how we can keep those things separate.
Yeah, I think that the first thing is to understand that we've got a weird paradigm where businesses are in your home for the first time, but they don't want to be. I promise you the network admins don't want to know what is going on in the house, and they don't care. They just want to deliver, reliable connectivity. And so part of that is through things like 802.1x or using user-based identities, zero trust network access. I no longer want to worry about, depending on my strategy, I don't want to worry about what's going on in Matt Douglas's house or how Matt's connecting. I gave Matt a laptop, and that's the only thing I want to see. And so that's the only thing that can get on my SD-WAN network is Matt's laptop. Maybe I take a different approach where I want bring your own device. I want this flexibility. And in that environment, I still can utilize like a radius authentication and tie that to a specific wireless network in my house. And so my kids are on home Wi-Fi and doing Netflix and video games. I'm on corporate Wi-Fi, and that corporate Wi-Fi has radius authentication to it. Or the next phase is segmentation. And how do I create, depending on what my use case is, how do I create the same way we would do a PCI compliant private segment in a business world? We're doing the same thing here. And what that means is me as a service provider or as an orchestration plane controller, I cannot see what's going on. To the same way that CBTS would not be able to inspect a retailer's credit card traffic that's going through a PCI segment, I won't be able to see your home traffic that's going through a private segment.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna move the direction a little bit. A lot of our partners on this call, and it sounds like we got a pretty long list of partners, may or may not have worked with Cisco powered solutions. Bryan, do you mind talking a little bit about how Cisco views this channel, and what would you say to those partners as they're looking into their base of customers on why would they start thinking about a Cisco powered solution, preferably in my case from CBTS, but versus an 8x8 or a Ring Central or some of the other folks that are competitors to Cisco?
Yeah, good question. I think I'm sure a lot of the folks here have run into Cisco in the market, or have tried to partner with Cisco, or not sure where, or maybe even competed against Cisco on the same opportunity, where Cisco account manager was in there with you. I think one thing that Cisco has started to do and is really doing really well, and started in 2019 and is really doubling down on it in 2020, which is going to be great for this channel community, is the enabling of managed service providers such as CBTS to have that. I said it earlier, transactional velocity. So one thing that the Cisco model offers, right, is I'll call it retail versus wholesale. But in some sense, you have a Cisco team in the field that is working, that will work with you and close a business, and that gets transacted through a Cisco commerce workplace. The licenses get accrued through sort of the Cisco account manager, and there's a sort of a rigid approach there. What's made that difficult in the channel in the past is a lot of the work happens between a channel agent who has a relationship with a customer and an MSP who has a solution that wants to be sold. And a lot of where those deals got bogged down and didn't get done was in the transaction, and how is it transacted? How does the customer buy? How do they quickly get pricing? And so with Webex for Broadworks and a lot of other offers that you're going to start seeing from Cisco on both the security and the network side with Meraki and others, is to empower our MSPs such as CBTS to have all of the tools in their toolkit to transact and to turn up customers and to build them all on their own. And so the folks that are going to do this very well, such as CBTS, are going to have that transactional velocity to partner with the channel, sell Cisco powered solutions with your own brand and your own mix of toolkit, and transact it all on your own. And I think that's going to open it up to take down a whole lot of business in the channel.
Okay.
Bryan,
What about?
I think it's probably, I want to add to this, Rob. I think, Bryan, tell me if you think this is true or not, but I think when you go back a couple of years ago in the Cisco world, they didn't even really understand what this channel was. They
That's
built
true.
their entire business on selling through the VARs. They thought a VAR selling CapEx solutions and professional services was how they went to market, right? CBTS comes out, and this channel's been hearing us scream for 3 years now, Cisco as a service. And I remember Rob Messmer and I were literally on a call with a couple of decent bigwigs from the Cisco side a couple of years ago, and I said to them, we want you to come out on the channel and talk about Cisco as a service. And this person on the, I won't name that was from Cisco, said, I can't get you anybody to go out on the channel and say that. Well, now they're starting to talk this way. Rob and I were literally on a call with some of your peers talking about how Cisco's coming in the channel and going to be delivering a message of Cisco as a service, right? So not only do you guys talk about this transactional kind of velocity, but Cisco's finally woken up that there are a lot of important consultants, these partners that are on the webcast here with us, who have fabulous relationship with customers, and they had better empower those partners and empower those service providers, or they're going to lose mind share. And that's what excites me about what I think's been happening in the Cisco world.
So Bryan, how do you differentiate as Cisco makes their mark in the channel? Obviously, we've been flying the flag high. How do you compete with, and how do you see Cisco competing with 8x8 Ring Central? And for the core of this conversation, maybe start there, which is the Webex Teams, the Cisco Webex Teams interface that is going to be having to compete with the likes of more UCaaS centric, providers like 8x8 or Ring Central.
Yeah, so I think it starts with calling and meetings, and then there's going to be a battleground at team collaboration. We have the world's best calling platform in Broadworks and UCM on the high enterprise, and we have the world's best meetings platform in Webex. I think one thing that Zoom has done really well in this market that has kind of gotten everybody to go, aha, is from COVID, they got mass numbers of users to do free trials, and because it's so easy to transact on these on Zoom and other pure play internet providers, is they were able to convert a lot of those trial customers to paid customers, and we saw that sort of in their earnings call with how much their revenue growth was after those free trials from COVID. And so one of the challenges that we have is it's no secret that doing business with Cisco has a fair amount of friction. I mentioned everything about how it's transacted and the commerce side of it. And so enabling partners to go in and lead, especially win with calling, the world's best calling platform and the meetings platform, I think we're going to have tremendous success. Just knowing the fact that two things. One, Zoom has brought this market wide open with the amount of people that they've convinced needed web conferencing. And a lot of them are not on multi-year contracts right now. And so we can come in with a much, much better offer that includes collaboration and calling. And we can replace Zoom in so many places. So that's where I see the most excitement. I think on the Ring and the 8x8 side, the team collaboration conversation is much, much stronger. I would encourage any of the partners that are on the call today, if you aren't using or familiar with Webex Teams, give it a try. Start collaborating with CBTS or with some of your other partners in Webex Teams. Compare it with the experience that you get with perhaps Glip or Slack. The intercompany communication aspect of meaning two people that are in different organizations being in part of the same workspace, collaborating on the same tasks and ideas, that experience in Webex Teams is far superior to our competition. And I would put any of them up against that. So I think we're in a really good place together, Rob. I think partnering with this channel and going to market with this product, we're going to have a lot of success.
Good. And what's your sense of the Cisco sellers in the market? Obviously, they have relationships with customers, and as Cisco has opened up their channel, they're really wanting to embrace the channel. I know we've pulled those pieces together on behalf of on certain opportunities where we get the partner and the Cisco rep together for them to realize that now we're together and not competing through CBTS. Is that also part of the go-to-market strategy with Cisco?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that piece is going to take predominantly a lot of education, not just on the channel partner side, but quite frankly, a lot of education within our own field. In a lot of cases, these guys are used to going to battle with each other. They're used to viewing the channel agent as a competitor, and they don't understand that they're selling a cooperating solution. And so what I would just say and this is something that we do in my role, is go out and meet with all those commercial sales teams, educate them on Webex for BroadWorks, educate them on CBTS's go-to-market initiative. And for any of the partners that are on the phone today, if you run into a deal where there's maybe an existing Webex seat or there's an existing CUCM, work with CBTS, work with us, and let's get you in contact with that field team, that Cisco team, and let's take down business and win together.
Yep.
Matt, talk about where our partners, and I know we've seen a lot of this, maybe have picked up on something within their customer environment is Cisco. Maybe it's Webex, maybe it's Call Manager, maybe it's maybe it's their network, and how we've been able, talk about it, maybe some examples of how we've been able to then have that partner talk to them about Webex Teams and start selling the full portfolio from Cisco versus thinking of it as competitive.
Sure. Well, first of all, I've been guilty of that, right? I've been selling UCaaS services for 15 years now, right? Going back to 2004. So I tended to think of the experience as just duplicating a phone. Collaboration wasn't part of a conversation. Workflows and workspaces wasn't part of a conversation. So I think this, like I mentioned, the SDWAN side and the conversations about how SDWAN could be a glue of getting into a customer's kind of business applications and their outcomes. I think that collaboration is the same kind of point. I can now start talking to them about, okay, you've sent these people working from home. What are the challenges you've had? Have you looked at any kind of collaborative workspaces like Microsoft Teams, like Webex Teams, like Slack, where you can share files, you can share space, you can do things both internally and externally with customers. and that starts to open a conversation that gets deeper into the business. So again, I think this UCaaS, we've been calling it UCaaS 2.0, this opportunity to start to use the kind of Teams workspace, Webex Teams for BroadWorks, obviously we'd love to keep pushing, but that team space and opportunity, the UCaaS 2.0, if you would, is really allowing us to have a different kind of conversation that's about a deeper relationship and hopefully a longer term relationship with the customer. So those are the things we'd love to help, partners with talking to their customers.
Here's a question that's popped up. Bryan, you mentioned CBTS as a potential partner and others. Why is CBTS, why are you on this call, and why are you saying CBTS versus potentially somebody else? I guess the question is, what are the differentiators that CBTS brings?
Yeah, good question. I think, when I look at you guys, and obviously the relationship that we have as you guys being a partner with us, one of the things that CBTS does really, really well is letting the customer's requirements drive the design. So there's a lot of folks out there that have CUCM, and maybe they have an on-prem business, and that's the sort of their only calling solution, or maybe they have SD-WAN and their only their only SD-WAN solution is one thing. Where you guys have different solutions tailored for different customer needs. The needs of the large enterprise is going to be very different than the needs of a user in the mid-market, right? The needs of a user that has highly distributed workforce or lots of retail locations is going to be different than a one headquarters or a campus environment. And I think one thing that you guys do really well is you sort of obscure the technology from the end customer, and you don't even talk platforms until you're on that third or fourth conversation where you've really sharpened your pencil on the customer requirements, and then you come in and give them the right approach, which I think is great. The second thing I would say is calling. As much as we like to make it sound easy, calling is hard. Getting it right is tricky. And one thing that you guys really pride yourselves in, and I can back it up with the success that we've seen with customers, is the thoughtful approach that you guys take to implementation and support. Just the care that you guys take with end users to get them through that big cutover, or get them through that big turn up, and making sure that it's successful has really paid dividends with customer satisfaction.
Well, thank you. Talk a little bit about roadmap. What do you see coming in terms of the client, the client interfaces coming together? You've talked about video. What do you see what's Bryan's crystal ball on the next, year or 2 years as it relates to collab?
Yeah. I wouldn't say my crystal ball, but I will steal some words from our new leader. So for those of you that don't know, we actually have a new leader of the collaboration BU here at Cisco. His name is Jeetu Patel. He comes to us from the Chief Product and Innovation Officer at Box. And we've had a few meetings with him, and he's a really brilliant guy. And he's already dug in with the engineering team, and they're working on a lot of things. You guys might have seen that we bought an audio clarity company that we're going to add natively into Webex, which is going to automatically use some AI to synth out any background noise to make audio a lot clearer. And the one thing I'll just say is G2 has challenged the team, and he's setting up a plan the goal is to say, how can we make a Webex meeting 10 times better than an in-person meeting? Not 10% better, 10 times better. And you're going to see a lot of things that we're going to do to make the meeting join experience, the before, during, and after meeting experience from tasks and note taking and transcriptions, and all these things be brought in and integrated with the client to really improve the lives of the end customer that's using the product, and make it a lot stickier. So I'm really excited. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the unified client, which is Webex Teams, in our meetings experience as well.
Great.
Matt, Bryan, one question I have had, and I think maybe you and I have talked about this a little bit, but everything we've been talking about is kind of the Webex Teams for BroadWorks. Are there plans to move some of these experiences onto the HCS or Call Manager UCM platform as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I mentioned of the Broadsoft acquisition, they started with cloud calling, and really that first year after we were acquired, there was a lot of focus on Webex calling, which is sort of based around those broad cloud assets. But one of the big things that they're doing is saying, if any of the partners on the phone are familiar with our UC1 offering, so as Broadsoft, we had a collaboration client. We called it UC1. We had a desktop app and a mobile app. And we used every feature that we had been developing over the last 20 years on our PBX in the client. So if you actually just look at Broadsoft UC1 Communicator for desktop or mobile, which CBTS has in market right now, it's the industry's best from a soft phone capability, being able to do call pull, call park, transfer, visual voicemail, all the things that you need in your client. And so what Cisco has done really over the last year is taken a lot of that technology and a lot of that engineering and put it into Webex Teams, which is how we're powering the calling capabilities. And so doubling down on that strategy, we're calling the unified app, which is Webex Teams, is our unified app for callings, meetings, and messaging. We're now going to be able to replace Jabber with Webex Teams for all of our CUCM customers. So whether you're on-prem or you're hosted like an HCS environment, you'll be able to trade out Jabber for Webex Teams like for like, and have your calling and your IM functionality now be powered from the Teams client. So the great news there is all of our innovation and all of our effort to improve the experience is going to be the same effort across all of our calling customers, across all of our calling platforms.
I think that's going to really lead to some relevancy for Cisco in this space going forward. That's what excites me about it again. So,
yeah.
I know that a lot of our partners have taken advantage of those collaboration tools from Cisco on our behalf. So, Matt, why don't you talk about either the licensing that we can provide to our partners so that they can eat the dog food, and experience it, and what's available from your team from a demo perspective.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, Webex Teams is available for free. That's how I first saw this thing, whatever it was, a couple of years ago. And at first, I didn't quite understand its power, by the way, and now we use it constantly. It's on my desk all the time because, right down here, I've got 10 different prospects. We're all working together as a team, other topics, internal, etc., external facing things in the middle of a project. So one, I would urge everybody to get out there and load Webex Teams up and get a feel, because you can start using it. It's a full-fledged piece, right? The other thing is, some of you on here from partners have seen us start to do what we call our partner certification program. And so far, that partner certification program has been around our SDWAN offerings and our NAS offerings, our Meraki and SDWAN stuff. Where you're going to see the same thing now on UCaaS. We actually waited a little bit to have the Webex Teams for BroadWorks come out, as well as a new portal that we're announcing as well for our BroadWorks services. So one, we'd like to invite everybody here on this webcast that we'd love to have you join our partner certification program, and I and my team can put you through kind of a 45-minute, an hour-long program, teach you how to go through these demo portals, help you understand the product. We give you a little test, and you get basically an emblem and a certificate, if you would, that you are certified in our product. So we're starting to do that. Done it again across our SD-WAN and NAS. We're getting ready to do it for our security, the new checkpoint security that we've talked to a lot of people, and the same thing on the UCaaS side. And then to Rob's point, I hope you see from our team that we love a very detailed kind of discovery with your customers, understand their business problems, and demonstrations part of that. So whether it's myself, a member of my team, other folks in CBTS, we're more than capable to get in and start doing some demos of these features and some of these products. So yeah, thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Matt. Any parting words? I'll go around the horn, and then we'll hand it back to Gabby. Matt, anything else? Last comments to add?
No, other than thank you for everybody for joining here. Again, myself and my sales engineering team, we love to engage with customers. We talk every time we meet as a group, and when Rob holds our kind of division-wide meetings, we talk about how do we make you guys heroes out there in the field, and that's our job, right? When you bring us in, one, we need to understand what swim lanes you want us to stay in, because sometimes you might not need every single CBTS offering. But when we do engage with you and your customer, our job is to make you look like heroes. So we appreciate every opportunity, and we'll keep at it. So thanks.
John, you wouldn't stop talking. Is there anything you'd like to part with?
Yeah, remember that we utilize SD-WAN as a delivery mechanism that is no longer geographically constrained, right? So when we go and talk about voice deployments, 5-6 years ago, we talked about delivering a dedicated circuit to control the quality of that voice and that quality of that experience. Now, whether it's at home or whether it's in a corporate office, wherever you're at globally, well, US and Canada for our dial plans, but we have the ability to come in and connect back to our voice cores, both our traditional Broadsoft, so the Webex calling core, as well as our HCS core. We have SD-WAN hubs that sit in front of it with multiple different SD-WAN OEMs, so we have ability to connect those in. So think of SD-WAN as a way, even if there is a different SD-WAN strategy that you already have in place for your customers as that trusted advisor, we can utilize our SD-WAN as the delivery mechanism that allows us to be faster, more agile, and continue to grow geographically without circuits.
That's a great point, because a lot of our customers end up saying, "Hey, I'd like the same." We see a drag along because they want to have the same SD-WAN provider as the voice provider, because then there's one level of accountability. Although we can do it with others, that has been such a heavy carry through that it's been an advantage that we've had in the market. Bryan, any last comments? First of all, thank you, Bryan, for joining us today. It's a demonstration of Cisco's appetite and desire to really work with the channel and providers like CBTS. So thank you very much. Any parting words?
Thanks for the invitation, Rob. I really appreciate it and love the opportunity to talk with partners in the channel. Just the last thing I'd say is I'm really excited about what Webex for BroadWorks is going to bring. The world's best meetings experience with the world's best calling experience, enabled by partners such as CBTS, by the drink per user per month in units of one that you guys can go out and sell and be successful with very, very quickly. So I'm really excited about that. And so all the partners out there, really excited about you getting your hands on Webex Teams and Webex meetings and having a great experience.
Thanks, Bryan. Gabby, bring us home.
I just would like to thank all of you guys again. We don't have any additional questions, but if anything comes to mind, if you'd like to reach out to me or your channel manager, I will filter those through our experts. And with that, I will send out a copy of the presentation or the recording after this, and we will also have a blog to go up that will have all of the questions and answers in writing. So that will be up in a week, and I will send that out as well. So thank you all for joining. I'm looking forward to doing this again.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.